Yes, I basically wrote musical portraits. And for example, for Wayne Shorter, I wrote a piece called Wayne's World. And for Jimmy Heath, a piece called A Little Bird Watchin'. For Clark Terry, Positively CT. For Maestro Ron Carter, Mr. Virtuoso.
Yeah.
And I
A broadcast service of City College and the San Diego Community College District. This is Jazz FM 88.3 KSDS San Diego. I'm Dave Drexler with Inside Art. Support for Inside Art comes from the members of San Diego's Jazz 88.3. This week on Inside Art, we'll preview La Jolla Playhouse's 2026 Without Walls Festival of Immersive and Sight-Inspired Theater. But first, KSDS is presenting acclaimed pianist, composer, and Guggenheim Fellow Helen Sung in a tribute to one of jazz's most influential pianists and composers, Mary Lou Williams. Sung will be joined by a full string ensemble for Williams' landmark Zodiac Suite and more Tuesday, April 21st at 7 p.m. in the Joan at Cygnet Theatre at NTC's Liberty Station. Classically trained in her youth, Helen first encountered jazz during her music studies at the University of Texas and went on to be part of the inaugural class of the Thelonious Monk Jazz Institute and win the Kennedy Center's Mary Lou Williams Jazz Piano Competition. Helen Sung's newest album, Oracles, due out in June, is her first big band project inspired by the jazz legends who've mentored her throughout her career. Helen joins us today from New York City, where she's an associate professor at Columbia University. Helen, it's great to have you back with us on Inside Art.
Oh, thank you so much, Dave. San Diego is one of my favorite places on the planet, so I'm always happy to do anything associated with the city.
Oh, great. We've had great weather for you, so hopefully that'll continue in your appearance here coming up on the 21st. I may have made a little bit of an error in the introduction. Your first project for big band, writing for big band, was really with Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra. Was that right?
Well, it was not really a project. It was just one piece. So you are correct. That was really kind of the first serious encounter where, there was some stakes involved that it go well. And it really, it was such an incredible experience. And it really inspired me to keep, trying and working at it, because I've never had the chance to take any formal arranging or composition classes. I did do some study of large ensemble writing through the BMI Jazz Composers Workshop, but mostly it's been just, learning as I go along and asking people that I really respect who have such, great experience, people like Alan Ferber, and I got to speak a little bit with Maria Schneider about it too, and of course, the Jazz at Lincoln Center musicians, artists, and who just really, they're the most famous big band on the planet, and so that really was like the impetus to really get deep into this world.
So this forthcoming album is very personal then, because it pays tribute to a lot of the mentors you had.
Yeah, the idea for this came during the pandemic when I was sitting by myself in my apartment and thinking, man, am I ever going to be in a room with people again? And I want to do something that involves a lot of people. And, I had time on my hands and I was applying for grants, and one of them was the Guggenheim Fellowship. And so the thing I could think of was big band. And it turned out to be such an ideal canvas because, these artists, they're larger than life. So why not use the biggest jazz format to try and capture some of their spirit? And even more importantly to me, I just feel like, I was definitely not from the world of jazz. I was a newcomer, an alien of sorts, and these masters, they made room for me. They welcomed me in, and that's one thing I so love about jazz, that it welcomes everybody, and they want you to bring who you are in your piece, because it just adds to the beautiful tapestry that is jazz music.
Well, you refer to them as masters, but many of them, in fact, most are legends in the music. Clark Terry, Ron Carter, Jimmy Heath, Wayne Shorter, Barry Harris, Kenny Barron, Herbie Hancock, Sir Roland Hanna, to name many of the mentors you're celebrating.
Definitely icons of the music. Yes, and as time continues to march forward, a lot of them have gone on to that band of what they band in the skies. So when I was there as a student, yeah, you're right. We spoke of them as the masters, but they are definitely the legends and the giants and the people that really created this art form.
Well, Sir Roland Hanna, among the group there of legends, he encouraged you not to forget your classical roots. I thought that was interesting.
Yes, I really felt like I was shelving all this music I'd played for, most of my young life, and just really trying to wrap my head around, this new language, this new way of playing. And I felt kind of almost split, because I played all this incredibly complicated, written out music, concertos and sonatas, and then with jazz, I'm trying to figure out, how do you phrase these lines in my right hand and how do you comp? And I was really grateful to him, because I felt, of course I felt like I was behind and catching up, but then he said, this classical stuff, it's a part of you and it needs to be a part of what you do. And so that inspired me to, there are all these amazing pianists I met through the Institute. And so I was like, how do I pay tribute to them? So let me put it in a classical form, but a jazz piano concerto.
So this album, Oracles, due out in June. I believe it's June 12th is the date, and that should be available wherever music is sold, from Sunnyside Records. This has tribute pieces to all of these greats, doesn't it?
Yes, I basically wrote musical portraits. And for example, for Wayne Shorter, I wrote a piece called Wayne's World. And for Jimmy Heath, a piece called A Little Bird Watchin'. For Clark Terry, Positively CT. For Maestro Ron Carter, Mr. Virtuoso.
Yeah.
And I also include, I always like including like a chaser or a coda of sorts. I had the opportunity to arrange for a weekend at Dizzy's Jazz Living Center. They commissioned me to do arrangements of Horace Silver's music, and Peace is one of my favorite pieces by him. And so I thought it apropos at the time, and even more so to include that, at the end.
Well, another influential figure for you, of course, is Mary Lou Williams, the great pianist. And that's what this concert is all about here in San Diego, coming up on the 21st, presented by KSDS at the Joan, the new Cygnet Theatre at Liberty Station. Well, tell us a little bit about the importance of Mary Lou Williams for you as a musician.
Well, she's transcendent. She defies categorization. She's beyond all those, superlatives that still somehow fall short. And then we add the part that she is a woman, and just during a time when I imagine it was 100 times more difficult to, really find a place in this music in terms of the business. There was no doubt, no question about her incredible musicianship and artistry and talent. So I really consider her a true pioneer. I and my fellow women in jazz really stand on her shoulders. She did a lot of the hard work, and not only that, she also mentored. She was a mentor too. She mentored a lot of the great figures that we, celebrate: Thelonious Monk, Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, Bud Powell. They all met at her apartment, and she showed them technique, and they were discussing. It was like a true musical salon. And then just her incredible range. She said that she was very proud of the fact that she was able to play in just all the different styles that had come through jazz. And she was an incredible composer and arranger, arranged for, starting off with Kirk and the 12 Clouds of Joy, and then very notably for Duke Ellington and Benny Goodman. So it just goes on and on. And one of the very incredible and special pieces she wrote is called the Zodiac Suite, which, as it's the name, she wrote music inspired by each sign of the zodiac. And she said it wasn't like, like one sign was one musician, but different musicians of the same sign. That was all went into it. So I've played a couple of the movements as part of a different show out here for an ensemble called the Knights. So I'm really excited to get the chance to play all of them, and really looking forward to working with some musicians on the West Coast that I'm not as familiar with.
So with the Zodiac Suite, are there any particular challenges in that kind of diversity of all those sun signs you're reflecting there?
Well, I think part of the challenge is she wrote it with varying instrumentations. I think some of them were originally small group, some were for solo piano, um, and one for a piano-based duo. So, and it also, not surprisingly, has features of classical music alongside her, blues and jazz artistry. So I think there has been arrangement with string ensemble, which is fascinating. I heard the great pianist Aaron Deal do it recently, maybe last year, with the San Francisco Conservatory student orchestra. So I believe there's going to be some arranging done for. I'm not sure of the exact instrumentation of this string ensemble. So I think the challenge is, how do you make it into a more of a cohesive whole? So I'm actually looking forward to seeing how I can put my own personal imprint on this piece. And so I'm studying the score right now, and yeah, I think that's one of the mandates of jazz, right? What do you want to say through this music? And I'm just really, really uh, excited about the opportunity to dig into this special work by Mary Lou Williams.
One other thing I wanted to explore with you, this relationship you've had at Columbia with the Mortimer B. Zuckerman Mind-Brain Behavior Institute. Are you still involved in that, which explores analogies between jazz and neuroscience?
Yes, that was such an amazing opportunity. In 2019, they started the artist in residence for jazz. They also have a writer in residence and a visual artist in residence. And the goal is just to have, artists hanging out, and you can speak to all these different incredible neuroscientists, some of them Nobel Prize winning, and just doing the most cutting edge research. And I had a special interest in memory and music, and just how the brain engages with music. And it was fascinating learning how music is something that really integrates our brains like as a whole. It engages it in a comprehensive way, like few other things, right? It triggers the audio centers, of course, but then also visual, a sensory. It's beautiful. And I think that makes sense, because music is something that when we gather together to listen, it really connects all of us. And so I had the amazing opportunity to partner with one of the neuroscientists there. She found an organization in New York City that serves and engages those suffering from Alzheimer's and dementia. And we were uh, all through the pandemic, and even after, we presented programs where they would pair me with a neuroscientist, and we would discuss one certain aspect of how the brain engages with music, like rhythm or melody and memory. And it's just amazing. And so this summer, the founders of the jazz residency and I are going to present, uh, just talking about connections between jazz and neuroscientists. One of the neuroscientists is researching consciousness and decision making, and how that relates to when you're improvising, what's going on in the brain as you make these different choices and as you interact. It's just so fascinating. And not to get too ahead of myself, but I did recently record what's going to be my album After Oracles, which is music inspired by this residency, and features music based after bird song, because one of the neuroscientists I met, she studies just there are birds that sing discrete songs that are passed down from generation to generation. And so I call them modern love songs. And they're so just varied and interesting. And I just learned that, you know, of course, the males get to sing the song and the females learn to evaluate them. And it's like something in the bird's brains. And I'm sorry, that term sounds so silly, right? Bird brains. But around their puberty, like, because before then they're both singing and both imitating their parents. But when those birds hit puberty, the something in the neurons in the male brains, they come on and they're all about singing this song to the best of their ability, and the female brain suddenly they're all about evaluating who they like to sing it the best, and their correlates to human language development is just so fascinating, the human brain. And then she actually created the first bilingual bird. She put the egg of one species into another species nest to see if it would learn the song of the the wrong species, and it did. But she said it sang that song in the cadence of it's a native species, so it's saying the song wrong. So I said, well, was it able to attract a mate? And she said, oh no, Helen, I'm sorry. They weren't going for it. And I was like feeling so bad for the bird, but she said, don't worry, they live a very cushy life. They call these bachelor birds isolates in their lab. So yeah, just really amazing and cool stuff going on there. Thanks for asking about it.
Well, we're looking forward to hearing that down the line, of course, as well as Oracles, which releases on June 12th. And, of course, not the least of which, our reason for our conversation, the Zodiac Suite and more from Mary Lou Williams, happening at NTC's Liberty Station, the new Cygnet Theatre. I've been speaking with pianist Helen Sung. Thanks again for joining us, Helen, on Inside Art.
Thank you, Dave. I will see y'all soon.
Helen Sung performs Mary Lou Williams' Zodiac Suite and more Tuesday, April 21st at 7 p.m. in the new Cygnet Theatre at Liberty Station. Tickets for this special KSDS presentation can be purchased at jazz88.org. Helen Sung's forthcoming album Oracles from Sunnyside Records will be released June 12th, and you can learn more at helensung.com. Coming up, we'll preview the 2026 edition of La Jolla Playhouse's Without Walls Festival. That's next as Inside Art continues here on San Diego's Jazz 88.3. Funding for Inside Art comes from the members of Jazz 88.3, where your support brings the joy and history of jazz and all of the arts to San Diego. To become a member, visit jazz88.org/donate.